wanted to speak about the prom.
Okay.
It was very successful. It was in, I think the evening went off without a hitch. So I think students had a nice time. Certainly you can see it through the photos on the webpage. So. And the concert was last Wednesday, which was also, yes, very nicely done.
And we recently completed the 328 state math testing, so that's out of our way. We are working on the 4th and 8th grade state science tests. Those are coming along. We'll have the written and performance tests. And then the elementary has proposed their field trip ideas to the parent association, so I think we're pretty good to go with those too. So
Everybody had the end of school year and the anxieties and
Yeah.
go.
we're ready.
The PTA funds that, trips?
What's that?
PTA funds those trips?
Yep, they do, absolutely. Everybody pretty much puts in for their proposed ideas, and then the parent association takes a look at it, and for the most part approves. And we do typically attend the same locations, but that's kind of a good thing too, because then we're not getting a lot of overlap, and the kids have an idea where they're going. The pre-K is going to Old McDonald's Farm. Kindergarten, first grade this year, actually, this is kind of neat. They're taking their picnic and they're doing a little bit extra with it this year. They're doing a little bounce house out back and cotton candy and snow cones and really doing it up. Then we have second grade that'll be attending the zoo. Third grade is going to the Governor Bowling Alley. Fourth grade is going to Gold Castle. Fifth grade is going to the Wild Center, and sixth grade is going to Water Safari. So a lot of trips planned. All between the dates of June 2nd and the 12th. So it'll be a busy couple of weeks.
And we try to put those dates in so that they're before the Regents, so with busing and everything, it makes it easier. Title IX, I met with Carl Normandin. There is a handout that was provided to the board that basically talks about Title IX, what it is, what it applies to. It's a little bit different at the high school level than it is at college level. And first of all, just to let everybody know, there's no such thing as reverse discrimination of Title IX. So learned a lesson here. However, there's three things that you have to do to make sure you're proportionate amongst male and female sports. And those include annually looking at the number of males and females you have in your school district, which you can see I did for each of the years, starting from seniors right down to 7th grade. So we have 18 more females than males, which would allow us to have, per season, approximately one sport more for females, depending, unless you're talking a team that requires 35 people. So even though we are slightly off in the spring, or excuse me, the fall by having swimming and volleyball, because in the spring we make up for it, you can see there's actually more male sports than female. It would probably all balance out and wash is what Carl Normandin felt. But proportionately, you also, another thing you look at is all the finances of the sports. So when you look at our budget and things, they have equal locker rooms, they have equal playing fields, equal time to play on the sports. The schedules rotate for the most part. They all have one coach per team. We don't pay for assistant coaches at any levels. The school doesn't pay scholarships for camps for males or females. We give equitable funds for equipment and supplies. The uniforms are basically the same caliber of uniform. Our practice schedules and slots are equitable. And each sport gets one allotted paid for tournament. If they want anything else, it goes through the boosters club. So overall, and what we are expected to do is each year do our number counts for males and females, find out where they fall proportionately, and decide if your school feels that you're hitting your targets properly. One of the things, though, if we were to have someone challenge, which we've had done in the past, and we've allowed males to play volleyball, we've allowed males to be on the swim team, and just as there's girls on the golf team. What that basically means in each of those cases, when the boys participated on swimming, they didn't necessarily get to compete because there were no other males. For the females, because it is a predominantly male team, if another school has females, they can then compete if there's space on the greens. If there's not, the girls only get to go to practices and obviously get improvement and get to work with the coaches and also with Partridge Run and their professional staff. So overall, or in compliance with Title IX. I have I think it's about 150 slide presentation if anybody wants to watch it. Thought it might be a bit much more than we needed. But I did want to let folks know after figuring it all out that we would probably fall well within the range of in compliance. It's usually dealt more with in the college level as far as taking finances away from an educational setting. It could happen in a school, public school setting if you just had all male sports, no female sports. If you had, fields that were, which was one of our big fights within our new building project, they wanted to upgrade the baseball field to practically major league level, and then the softball field was going to stay the same, and we've fought that. So those are just things we need to continue to be aware of as times go on. The other thing, I think it was Reggie that might have asked, of what other districts have for sports, what they have in different schools. This also was on the board packet, and it pretty much shows very similar to what we have. Some schools can have varsity, JV, and modified, some have modified and varsity, some just have varsity. But it shows you the realm of sports available throughout the North Country and the 18 districts that we could work with. One of the other things, especially in the fall, if we had males that wanted to play a sport, for example, football, and we denied the merger based on, we just didn't feel it was a necessary merger, then they could then appeal that. But we would, obviously at this point, because it's always no expense to our district, we've allowed mergers. And we've been successful, and I know that Mrs. Cobb already has 2 mergers that she's going to be bringing to the board in June for next fall. And we know that there's going to be a new lacrosse one in the spring. So as long as we continue to have the relationships with the districts we have, we're fine. The community band, I know that when Diane Rice was here last week, 2 weeks ago, she had mentioned a few things, and we didn't ever talk about if it was approved, denied. She had asked the boards if they could borrow the instruments, if the school would provide transportation, if they could use the uniforms, and also the school to practice. I had Becky call about insurance things, and I'll let her speak on that.
Judy Wood at the Bagnell here in Leonard said that with anything, that allowing adults in our school or on our bus does open us to some increased liability. It's not banned, but it's cautioned to be used wisely, is what basically she said. Obviously we can't ban everything, but just to not to allow everything to happen here is not what she would recommend. And that being said, with the bus, it's a little different than school. If you're on the bus, your liability insurance for your vehicle or a kid's parents' liability insurance for their vehicle will prevail over our insurance. Anything their insurance doesn't cover, our insurance then in turn picks up. So it's a little different. The only thing that would default that is with negligence, if a bus driver was negligent. So it does decrease our risk slightly. Again, she said it's a board decision to allow it.
So, and also with that request, if any adult were partaking in beverages that are legal for students, they would not be able to ride the school buses. So if somebody had drank beer or whatever, they couldn't be allowed to be on the school bus. So that was just something we wanted to point out. One of the things, over the summer, many of the students do take their instruments home with them. So we would have a limited number of instruments available. With the transportation, again, we could just put in a transportation request if that is what the board would like to do. And I know that the gentleman said that the fair would pay for that. The uniforms, I know it was just the request for the color guard uniforms, but they do say Edwards Knox, just something to point out. So just for conversation, discussion, what do the board think? Because we need to get back to Diana, her request.
Just on a side note, the color guard uniforms do not say Edwards Knox anywhere on them. They're black and silver and blue. That's it. There's no Edwards Knox markings on them whatsoever.
No.
No, there's
There's
no.
not an EK?
No.
There's nothing on them at all.
The
Nothing on
only
the flags.
EK is on just the band itself. The color guard isn't.
Okay,
Because
sorry.
we got any last year.
So according to Judy, any insurance or lawyer would advise against it, but it's,
Well, no, it's not that she's advising against it, she's just advising against doing it free willy, I guess. You don't want to do it let people run the building. When it's something where you feel that it's worth the risk, then it's the board's decision, and
if we did something like this, is there anything we should do? If adults want to participate, something similar to a contract or something, so they know what the expectations are. For example, these guys said if they partake in alcohol while they're not allowed to ride the bus back, responsibilities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
she didn't say specifically, but I don't think it would be a bad idea to have
Not that
something.
it's going to waive any of our liabilities, but it's going to help people understand what the expectations are.
Right.
I think we also explain to the driver what his responsibilities are too. You know, if they're intoxicated, no. And if if it becomes an issue, don't have on.
Bus driver kind of give them power in to have it.
Yeah, he's got final authority. So.
Man,
Just to add, I would be one of the adults marching, and if you wanted to do a contract or anything like that, I'd be willing to sign it. Whatever you guys decided on, I'd be willing to follow, without question.
I'm sure that anybody that wanted to participate would be willing to.
You should start toward maybe getting the band guy.
Well, enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I think personally, I'd say
Probably good.
it's,
I think-
it'd be one thing with the
They're asking about using uniforms for the front line. Are they gonna be students from the school?
Yes.
Yes, that would only be students.
Okay.
Well, that's my understanding when she said it.
Yes, that's what she's talking about.
Yes, color guard.
So obviously, we couldn't fit in
Oh, we're probably gonna find something for you.
I've started riding bike, Randy, so.
Should the board make a motion to allow this to occur? Do you want to, is the board ready to entertain a motion?
Have we talked, do you want to allow the instruments too?
I think if we,
If they're
I mean, the
do it.
instruments would be more difficult if we had them all or not. I mean, we might have some of them aren't probably the best of repair. Like I said, some students do take them home in the summer.
I know
But
Diane was
they might
working on a list of people who contacted her that was interested to see what instruments they played, and some even people actually even have their own still.
Correct.
So she started a list for that.
and Diane's going to kind of manage this whole process, I assume.
Yep, she said she'd run the practices, building request forms, those type of things.
Are we ready to entertain a motion? Are we ready to motion?
I guess, can you do it?
I know, are we gonna just ready to motion? I can regurgitate this as a motion. Okay, can I have a motion to accept the proposal as put forth by Diane Rice to form a community band for the purpose of the Governor and St. Lawrence County Fair this summer?
I'll move.
Really?
Second.
Tom? Any questions or comments?
I'd like to see the paperwork on this,
Okay?
what they're gonna sign, all the disclaimers, all
Well, you
that
can be on the
stuff.
committee then. Because obviously, well, someone's going to have to get together to write it. So I was going to ask for volunteers, because I feel like it should be a joint effort.
Could you just tell me again what that motion says?
A motion to accept the
Diane Rice's
proposal
to,
director to assemble a community band for the purpose of marching to the Governor and St. Lawrence County Fair
okay.
summer of 2014.
Can I get a couple of board member volunteers?
Sometimes.
Don't do it.
You have a motion on the floor.
Oh, sorry. There's a motion.
You have a motion on the floor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. We can discuss who wants to be on the committee.
The other committee was after 5.
Tom?
Is there any physical, pass a snoring test or anything?
I would like to have it for the next meeting, so we'll just get together, us, and then I'll call Diane and see if she has anybody else that'd like to be on it also and have her be part of it.
You'd like
Sure. Someone for the committee.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a discussion about the transportation for summer.
That was made by Lynn and Tom O.
Yeah, Tom.
When I met with the two people running the summer program, Diane Durham does our summer extended day program, and Patty Taylor, I guess, is going to be hired to do the summer recreation program. I had asked them to get together, come up with times for the program, and we initially agreed to 8 to 12:30. When Patty called over to the town of Edwards, they wanted the program to be till 3. We did not put money in the summer for summer school, summer band, summer lessons, or buses for recreation. We gave the $4,000, and Becky figured up in order to run the additional bus, because extended day pays all of our summer buses for the program. And last year they paid the buses as well as some of the field trips for the summer rec program to be able to go on. But the additional cost for summer rec to run the one run in the afternoon is $2,737.25. This is not in the budget.
What was that number again?
$2,737.25.
And that's a rough estimate.
That doesn't include any field trips, that includes only 20 days to pick up at the, I guess we're going to 2 stops, Russell and Edwards, Russell, DeGrasse, Edwards. And by the end of last year, because the number of students had decreased, we went to 2 buses instead of 3.
And that pays the cost of the actual buses, fuel and drivers?
Yes, I mean, it's estimate, basically what it involves is the 2 runs, 2 drivers, 2 hours a day for each driver for the afternoon, the mileage, which is 622 miles for the 20 days, because of the places we drop off, and then depreciation of the buses. So the salaries come to $1,378.40, because you have to add ERS, FICA, and workman's comp, and the mileage actual parts come to $930.58 for a total of $2,737.25. This money is not in the budget.
This is the joint.
What was given to the 2 towns was $2,000 to each of the towns to run the summer rec program, which is what we've done in the past.
I had a conversation with Sherry Lanfear, and she would entertain the school not reimbursing the towns the $2,000 a piece that we have historically. The town of Edwards, she said, would not require that reimbursement if that money would help offset the cost of transportation. I'm not sure who to contact in the village or the town of Russell to see what their thoughts on that are.
I would say Bob Best. Probably Bob Best.
Okay. I can get a hold of Mr. Best, see what his thoughts are, and maybe one potential solution would be to, the $4,000, use the 27 roughly, cover the transportation cost and split the balance of the 2 towns, if they would be willing to do that. To have the program run to its normal time.
How come we didn't know about this 1 straight clock before when we were working on the budget?
Because we've never received notification that there was even going to be a summer program. We haven't for the last couple of summers. And it was only through talking to Patty Taylor, who works here, and I asked her if they were going to do it. I had told her close to a month ago that this was being proposed. She didn't mention it to Sherry. I'm not blaming Patty for that. And then when I sat down with her and said, you need to let me know by yesterday. And then that's when Sherry contacted Reggie, not I. Randy, sorry.
The change is if we do the program, they would only be able to run until noon roughly because of we already running a bus at
12:30.
12:30 for the extended day program.
So can you go over what you're proposing again? I guess I understood that Edwards would offset, so we wouldn't be paying them the $2,000, is that what you're saying?
Sherry told me that they're not looking for paying.
Okay, and so you're gonna see if Russell will do the same?
Yes. And what I propose is $2,700 of it to transport kids, would they be willing to spend or split the $1,300 for that?
Well, there's still gonna be field trips and everything, so I would
That's just
say,
the regular one.
That's just a regular.
yes, it's no trips.
And that equaled about $4.40 a mile. Field trip might be longer because you're paying the driver to sit. So it might actually cost more for the field trips.
Sherry said that the town members doesn't care if they get any money back. It's not, the way she explained it to me, and I have to verify this with Bob Best and Russell, but the program costs roughly $18,000. It's a program that's sponsored by the town, two towns, Russell and Hopkins. Each town kicks in about $9,000. The only thing that they look for the school to pick up is the cost of transportation. That $18,000 covers the program costs, the salaries, or the payment of the people who work in the program, any fees, et cetera, et cetera. So it covers the program except for transportation. And historically, the school budget has put in some amount of money to give back to the town, to say, okay, we'll help cover some of the cost of business. It's the $4,000 in the program. We give each town $2,000 and say, thank you, here's a little bit of money back. But they said that $2,000, at least in the town of Edwards, is not budgeted. They don't look for that money back, they get it, it's windfall, and.
It's kind of ironic, because a couple of years ago, when we weren't going to give it, they said they wouldn't be able to have the program without it.
Well, so I have to get.
So, just why it's
I've
kind
got to
of,
get clarification, and this is just Sherry, I don't know if it's something that the town board has to approve. You know, if it's a line in their budget that they're getting this $2,000 reimbursement, it's something that they'll want to discuss. So I assume that this has to be approved by both towns before we can agree to it. But if it's possible to use that $4,000 to cover the transportation costs and the towns don't actually get that reimbursement, then we could run the program until 3 o'clock instead of 12. Feeling is, you know.
we just can't do both, I mean, because our budget's set, so we have $4,000 set aside, that's the bottom line.
So you're gonna have to get some idea what the field trips are gonna cost, so.
You can tell them that they can have it dressed up any way they want, but it's not gonna exceed $4,000, so.
Right.
I think the philosophy going in was that the program would be done at 12:30. I think it's probably not as pain, but that's a successful program or not. You know, if parents are home at 12:30, typically they're not 3 o'clock either. I don't know, you know, I don't know.
The only problem, I think you're gonna run into field trips, normally run later than 12:30.
Are they served lunch?
We do have, at this point, we plan to put in for lunch for the summer. And that's why when we had done it, we did the 8 o'clock breakfast, start lunch at 11:30, have everybody fed in time before they were too late.
Actually, Kathy works at a grant every year and gets a grant that we provide community lunches. So it costs nothing to the people who eat.
But we'd have to
It's
have
all
a number
fun.
to make sure that she has food prepared.
Oh, yeah, she's always worked that out well. The other part, the extended day program has really added to the rec program, because last year they used a lot of their art supplies, materials, and they shared some of the staff back and forth, which was a positive thing for everyone, because our extended day program has a lot of advantages to it. So that's what Diane and Patty had hoped to be able to do that again, and share students, of the older group of students, not the younger ones, because the grant doesn't cover younger students.
Mrs. Sykes, you want to build the bedrooms?
Yes.
Do you have any insight?
No, I was trying to think when you actually mentioned that line item, I would assume that it probably is in there somewhere, but I hate to say absolutely without knowing for sure. I mean, I know it was a conversation that in the past we would have had. I would have guessed that, you know, somehow in the budget it would have been delineated, but if that's somehow, I don't want to say disguised, but placed into a lump
Sure.
category somewhere.
Sure.
So I hate to say that it was separated out without knowing for sure.
So if the board wishes me to look into this a little deeper to see if this program can be somehow.
But like Lynn says, they gotta know that there's a limit, $4,000.
Right, we got $4,000, so.
For the field trips, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
So I'll find out what the two towns say.
the extended day goes from 4th grade up to 8th, but the summer rec program starts at, I can't remember if it's kindergarten first, but they alternate days, so they have the youngs and the olds, you know. And that's, I think, pretty much what they plan to do again this year, so they take trips separately by age groups. And the extended day program, and Patty, they were planning trips for the older kids to do it jointly. The last thing I have is, we do have our sensitivity training set up for our 7th and 8th grade male students tomorrow at 3:15. We have a gentleman coming, a certified counselor of 30 years who have worked with youth. He's also a former coach of the Trailblazers, of offensive line, and Clarkson College. So he'll be coming in to meet with the boys and the coaches tomorrow, of those who wish to be there.
Is that Mike? Mike Brennan?
Ray Holtz,
Okay.
that's all I have. Oh, I already told, okay. We do, though, have to come up with another committee, though, for the building project, which was recommended by the architect. And I know Tom and, well, Lynn, you weren't there. Tom was there and thought we might want to see if different people want to be on the committee, to sit down once we start going to the next stages. And they are actually talking about our project at State Ed right now. So it might actually get pushed a little further and quicker than we thought. Not that we'll be in full project this summer by any way, shape, or form, but are there certain people interested in being on that committee? And that committee would set up, you know, how are we gonna hire, what are we gonna hire for clerk of the works, that type of thing. And our committee does, and that's what Becky was just asking me, does have a meeting this Friday to look at the revised budget again. So do I have a couple of board members interested?
Yeah, I'll volunteer for that.
When's it gonna meet?
Fairly soon, or is that gonna be?
What time of day?
Oh, it depends what the committee is. Because this part of this committee will be us. It won't be the architect at this point. So if the people are night people,
Just Cindy on it again.
How many people do you need?
they can only have one more then.
You got Lynn and Tom and Tom.
Well,
Tom, did you say yes?
if it meets at night, I can do it.
I can actually know.
Okay.
What do you guys want to be out there?
Entirely up to you folks.
What I'll do is just send out whenever I do the memos for meeting, and we'll put Randy's alternate. If somebody can't make it, we'll just reply all, and Randy will know he's then going to. Okay?
If I have a
Thanks.
couple days' notice, then this summer should be a problem.
Okay. That's it.
If you want to be on it, Randy, you got more experience in that stuff, not just some meeting all in it.
That's fine, that's up to you.
No, you've got more experience in construction stuff and like that, so.
I don't mind.
We're just doing the recommendation back to the board anyway, right?
I don't know, if you see that registration desk over the hospital, I'm not sure we might.
I like it.
Okay.
So what did you two decide? 'Cause-
If Tom wants to be the alternate, I'm fine.
okay,
We can, is there a number thing here?
yes, that's the problem.
Can't wear 4, we only have 3, right?
I thought it was 3.
You can't have a quorum, so you could have 4.
So all 4 could be on it.
Okay, okay.
Beautiful.
So.
Now he's on the summer band.
Yeah, that's right, he's getting the dance stuff.
And I can,
You're lost on that one.
I'm,
Chief's come to bottle up.
Okay, I guess that's all we really have until we go into executive session. So can I have a motion to enter the executive session?
I'll move.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're going to tell me why.
That was good, right?
For the medical, financial, credit, employment history of a particular person or corporation or matter relating to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation, and for CSE and CPSE.
I still move.
That's the land.
I can
session at 7:26. Oh, all in favor? Aye. Still 7:26.
However you want.